I want to talk about stopping. So if you're built up a business but it's just not working, when is the right time to stop? So I'm going to talk about something awkward, but I think it's really valuable. It's all about knowing when to quit or knowing when to stop. Maybe quit has too much associated with it, so I shouldn't use quit, but knowing when to stop. So as an entrepreneur, you get stuck into business. You set something up, you work really, really hard at it, but knowing when to stop, knowing when whatever it is that you're doing is actually draining the life out of you and isn't worth it, is a really, really difficult thing. And it's so difficult because, God, there's so much in the media about fight on and don't be a quitter, and there's so much shame surrounding quitting. And it's very, very hard, I think, to differentiate between quitting and taking a calculated decision to stop. But for a lot of entrepreneurs, I see a lot of entrepreneurs where they're just, they're stuck in businesses. And they're actually suffering a huge opportunity cost as a result of that. They're stuck in businesses where they can't pay themselves a wage, let alone half of what they might be earning elsewhere if they were working for another company. They're working ridiculous hours. They're taking on crazy stress, and as a result of that stress, they're actually suffering physically, mentally. And I think it's really, really important every couple of months to look at what you're doing versus what you could be doing. To look at what you're getting from the business versus what you could be getting elsewhere from other businesses. And it's really, really important that you actually, I suppose you strictly look at that. And one thing that becomes really overpowering is the emotion that you attach to the business and the shame that you might attach to quitting and the embarrassment that you might associate to all those around you that are maybe involved in it or else looking on. But that's all really bullshit. The most important thing is that if you're working in something, that it's working for you. And if it's not, that you tweak and amend and refine as necessary. And if you've done that a few times and it's still not working, then it's not going to work. And you make a calculated decision then and there to stop. And you don't overcomplicate that decision by taking into account shame or embarrassment or any of those other silly emotions in that equation. I think it's really, really important that people are calculated with their businesses. And they, as I said, every couple of months forensically go through it and say, okay, is this working for me? Is this progressing? Is this progressing and working for me as much as potentially another business might, or working somewhere else might? I think it's a really, really interesting thing that we can actually burden ourselves with what it is that we're doing, and we can actually massively negatively impact our careers if what we're doing isn't progressing in line with how it should. So yeah, I wanted to talk about it. I had a phone call from a friend in a position like this last night, and I was talking to them and I was talking through things, and it was really, really clear for me looking on that they should stop because they've got loads of opportunity elsewhere that's immeasurably stress-free in comparison to what they're doing, and their careers will take off like a rocket if they're in that. But the business they're stuck in at the moment is like an anchor around their legs, just weighing them down. And I just think it's talking to them last night, like the stress they were under just considering the decision, the embarrassment they were thinking about. But at the end of the day, you've got to enjoy your life. And if you find yourself literally living to work and that work is beating the shit out of you, that's a very, very steep downward spiral. And you cannot let yourself get trapped. And it's really, really important that you make the right necessary decisions to get yourself out of that mess and move forward. And I don't think there's any shame in that. I actually think that's smart. And I think, I don't think there's any shame. And I think actually quitting or stopping in the right circumstances can be the most proactive, smart thing you can do. I had so many of those experiences actually in nightclubs where we'd go into a night and we'd put together a really strong brand, and we'd put together a really cool concept. But for whatever reason, it just wouldn't work. And it was really frustrating and embarrassing, because when you're promoting, you broadcast it out to so many people. And to be honest, when it doesn't work, everybody knows, because nobody goes and everybody talks about it. And if you try to force that, say if it's a weekly night and it doesn't work the first night, and you try and force it the next night and it doesn't work again, you start losing money really, really quickly. You start losing your reputation really, really quickly. It really, really drains your energy. For me, thankfully, I was in a good position where I was running multiple nights. So whenever that happened, it was very, very easy to see that that night is draining us, and that night is negatively impacting these other businesses that we're involved in, or these other nights that we're involved in. We've got to close that, and we've got to close that quickly. Otherwise, it's going to pull everything down. Now, I think it's easy when you're in a position where you've kind of multiple interests to make that kind of a decision, and maybe that was really good training for me. When all you're doing professionally is one business, it becomes really, really hard to see the negative impact that business is having on you, because we don't really appreciate ourselves. We don't count the hours that we're doing. We don't really count the fact that we're not paying ourselves a wage. We don't really look at the ill effects on our quality of life. But I would say strongly, really strongly urge you to take a step back and look at that when you're in the middle of a business. And as I said, weigh things up and make sure whatever it is that you're working on is working for you. And if it's not, make the decisions necessary to get it there. And if that isn't working, then look at things really, really calculatedly, really, really honestly. And if the decision is to stop it, take no shame in that decision. Make it quick, so you aren't dragged down too low, and you can bounce back and move on to the next thing.